Most retirement plans don't fail because of one big mistake. They fail because of hundreds of small decisions repeated over many years. A subscription you forgot? A house that's become too expensive? Helping family a little too often? None of these seem dangerous on their own, but together, they quietly drain the retirement you've worked so hard to build. Today, let's look at the 5 expenses that catch the most retirees by surprise and how to avoid them.
Quiet wealth, calm finance, better life.
When people imagine retirement risks, they often think about stock market crashes, inflation, recessions, healthcare emergencies. And while those risks certainly matter, many retirement plans are damaged by something much less dramatic: everyday spending. Not reckless spending, not luxury spending, just ordinary expenses that gradually increase over time. Because retirement is rarely destroyed overnight. More often, it is slowly eroded. One bill at a time, one subscription at a time, one habit at a time. And that's what makes these expenses dangerous. They rarely attract attention. They simply become part of life. Until the impact becomes impossible to ignore. Today, let's talk about 5 expenses that quietly destroy retirement plans. And more importantly, how awareness can help prevent them from doing so. 1. The house that became too expensive. Let's begin with the expense that often surprises retirees the most: housing. Not because housing is unexpected. Everyone knows housing costs money. The surprise comes from how those costs evolve over time. Let me tell you about a couple we'll call David and Karen. For more than 30 years, David and Karen lived in the same house. It was where they raised their children, where birthdays were celebrated, where holiday dinners filled the dining room, where family memories accumulated 1 year at a time. The house wasn't just a building, it was part of their identity. And when retirement finally arrived, they had no intention of leaving. Why would they? The mortgage was paid off, the neighborhood was familiar, the memories were priceless. Everything seemed perfect, at least initially. But retirement has a way of changing perspectives. The children no longer lived nearby. Several bedrooms sat empty most of the year. The large backyard required constant maintenance. Property taxes increased. Insurance premiums increased. Utility bills remained substantial. And eventually, major repairs arrived. A new roof, updated plumbing, a failing air conditioning system. None of these expenses were shocking individually, but together they created a pattern. A pattern that slowly consumed more retirement income than David and Karen expected. One evening, while reviewing finances, Karen asked a simple question. A question they had avoided for years. Are we maintaining this house because it serves our life, or because we're afraid to let it go? The question was uncomfortable, because sometimes financial decisions are not really financial decisions. They're emotional decisions. The house represented memories, history, security, comfort. Leaving felt like abandoning a chapter of life. But over time, they realized something important. The memories weren't inside the walls. The memories lived inside them. Eventually, they downsized. Not because they were forced to, not because they had failed, but because their priorities had changed. The results surprised them. Lower expenses, less maintenance, more flexibility, more freedom, and perhaps most importantly, more time. Time that was no longer spent managing a house larger than they needed, Now, this doesn't mean everyone should downsize. Far from it. Some retirees remain perfectly happy in larger homes. Others move closer to family. Some relocate entirely. There is no universal answer. The lesson is simply this. Retirement is a season of life that invites re-evaluation. And one of the most valuable questions you can ask is, does my home still support the life I want to live? Or has it quietly become one of my largest financial burdens? 2. Helping adult children too often. The second expense is one of the most difficult to discuss, because unlike housing, this expense involves love, family, and the natural desire to help the people we care about. Let's imagine someone named Linda. Linda spent decades working hard, saving carefully, preparing for retirement. And by the time she retired, she felt reasonably secure. Not wealthy, not extravagant, but comfortable. Then her adult son experienced financial difficulties. A temporary setback, or so it seemed. Linda helped with rent. A few months later, she helped again. Then again. Then again. Each individual transfer felt manageable. A few $100s, sometimes a little more. Nothing dramatic. Nothing that appeared capable of threatening retirement. But years passed, and the pattern continued. Whenever a challenge appeared, Linda stepped in. Not because she was irresponsible, because she loved her son, and because helping felt natural. Yet, eventually, Linda noticed something troubling. Her own savings were no longer growing. Emergency reserves were shrinking. Unexpected expenses felt harder to absorb. And retirement began feeling less secure. This situation is remarkably common. Parents spend decades protecting their children. Then retirement arrives, and many continue playing the same role. The challenge is that retirement resources are not unlimited. Every dollar sent elsewhere is a dollar unavailable for future healthcare, future emergencies, future security. Now, none of this means helping family is wrong. Many retirees find great meaning in supporting loved ones. But boundaries matter. Because there is a difference between helping someone through a challenge and becoming responsible for challenges indefinitely. One creates support, the other creates dependency. And sometimes the most loving thing we can do is protect our own financial future. Because remaining financially stable ourselves prevents becoming dependent on others later. That stability benefits everyone. 3. The car that costs more than expected. Cars are interesting, because most people think about the purchase price. But the purchase price is rarely the whole story. Let's imagine a retiree named Robert. Robert loved cars, always had, and after retiring, he decided to reward himself. After all, he had worked for decades, saved responsibly, sacrificed many luxuries. Surely he deserved something nice. So Robert purchased a new luxury SUV. The vehicle was beautiful, comfortable, reliable, everything he wanted. And for a while, he felt delighted with the decision. But over the following years, the true cost began revealing itself. Insurance premiums increased, maintenance costs increased, registration fees increased, fuel expenses increased, and eventually, depreciation quietly erased thousands of dollars in value. The issue wasn't the vehicle itself. The issue was cumulative cost. Because retirement spending is rarely defined by a single purchase. It is defined by patterns. And when expensive purchases become recurring habits, their long-term impact becomes significant. The lesson isn't that retirees should avoid nice vehicles. The lesson is awareness, understanding the complete financial picture, not just the initial excitement of ownership. Because retirement freedom often depends on distinguishing between what feels rewarding today and what remains sustainable tomorrow. 4. Healthcare costs people underestimate. If there is one expense that consistently surprises retirees, it is healthcare. Not because people forget about it. Most people know healthcare matters. Most people understand that medical costs increase with age. The surprise comes from the gap between expectation and reality. Let's imagine someone named Susan. Susan retired at 66. She felt prepared. Her mortgage was paid off. Her spending was modest. Her retirement savings looked healthy. And because she had always been relatively healthy, she assumed medical expenses would remain manageable. For the first few years, they did. Routine checkups, a few prescriptions, nothing extraordinary. Then, gradually, things changed. A specialist appointment here, a new medication there, physical therapy after an injury, dental procedures that insurance only partially covered, vision care, hearing support, additional testing, follow-up appointments. None of these expenses arrived dramatically. None created an immediate crisis. Instead, they accumulated quietly, month after month, year after year. Until Susan found herself spending far more on healthcare than she had ever anticipated. And this experience is remarkably common. Because healthcare expenses rarely arrive as one giant bill. They arrive as a steady stream of smaller expenses. A prescription refill, a dental procedure, a diagnostic test, a specialist consultation. Each one manageable, but together, substantial. And unlike many other retirement expenses, healthcare is often difficult to postpone. You can delay a vacation. You can postpone buying a new car. You can reduce discretionary spending. But when health requires attention, most people have little choice. This is why healthcare deserves special consideration in retirement planning. Not because it is guaranteed to become overwhelming, but because uncertainty itself has a cost. The uncertainty of not knowing what future care may require. The uncertainty of not knowing when needs may change. The uncertainty of not knowing which expenses lie ahead. And yet, there is an important lesson here. The goal is not predicting every future healthcare expense. That's impossible. No one knows exactly what the future holds. The goal is building flexibility, building margin, building enough resilience that surprises become manageable rather than devastating. Because retirement planning is not about eliminating uncertainty. It's about becoming strong enough to live with it. 5. The small monthly payments nobody notices. Now, let's talk about one of the most overlooked expenses in modern retirement: subscriptions. At first glance, this seems almost too small to matter. After all, what difference can a few monthly payments make? $5 here, $10 there, $15 somewhere else. Individually, almost insignificant. Collectively, often surprising. Let's imagine a retiree named Richard. Richard considered himself financially responsible. He paid attention to spending, avoided major debt, rarely made impulsive purchases. And because he was careful, he assumed there were no hidden problems in his budget. Then one day, his daughter helped him review recurring expenses: streaming services, cloud storage, music subscriptions, news memberships, shopping memberships, software renewals, fitness apps, premium services he barely remembered signing up for. The total shocked him.
Not because any single subscription was unreasonable, but because dozens of small decisions had accumulated over time. Each one seemed harmless when it began. Each one promised convenience, entertainment, productivity, value. And perhaps they once delivered those benefits. But years later, many remained active long after their usefulness had faded. This is one of the challenges of modern spending. Much of it is invisible. Automatic payments remove friction, which is convenient. But convenience sometimes reduces awareness. And what we stop noticing, we stop evaluating. Richard eventually cancelled nearly half of his subscriptions. Not because he wanted to deprive himself, but because he wanted intentionality. He wanted every dollar to serve a purpose. And that's really the lesson. Retirement isn't about eliminating enjoyment. It's about making sure spending reflects priorities rather than habit. The common thread. At first glance, these 5 expenses seem unrelated. Housing, adult children, transportation, healthcare, subscriptions. Different categories, different causes, different circumstances. But beneath the surface, they share something important. None of them begin as obvious problems. That's what makes them dangerous. Financial mistakes are often easy to spot. Financial drift is harder. Drift happens slowly, quietly, gradually. A larger house continues feeling normal. Helping family continues feeling natural. Vehicle upgrades continue feeling reasonable. Healthcare costs continue increasing. Subscriptions continue renewing. Nothing feels dramatic. Nothing demands immediate attention. And yet, over time, the cumulative effect becomes significant. Retirement rarely changes because of a single decision. More often, it changes because of hundreds of small decisions repeated over many years. This is why awareness matters so much. Not because every expense needs to be reduced, not because every dollar must be optimized, but because conscious spending creates freedom, while unconscious spending often creates limitations. The difference is not always the amount spent. The difference is intention. What successful retirees do differently? When people imagine financially successful retirees, they often picture extraordinary investors, people who predicted markets perfectly, people who earned unusually high returns, people who discovered secret strategies. But real life tells a different story. Many successful retirees are surprisingly ordinary. They don't possess special knowledge. They don't make spectacular predictions. Instead, they practice something much simpler. They pay attention. They periodically review their lives, their spending, their habits, their priorities. And they ask thoughtful questions. Does this still serve me? Does this still bring value? Would I make this same decision today? Those questions create clarity, and clarity often leads to better decisions. Because retirement is not static. Life changes. Health changes. Relationships change. Goals change. What made sense at 55 may not make sense at 75. And successful retirees accept this reality. They adapt, they adjust, they evolve. Not out of fear, but out of wisdom. Because flexibility is one of the most valuable financial skills retirement can offer. One of the greatest misconceptions about retirement is the belief that financial success depends entirely on large decisions. A perfect investment strategy, a perfect retirement age, a perfect savings target. And while those things matter, they are only part of the picture. Because retirement is lived day by day, month by month, year by year. And the choices that shape retirement are often much smaller than we imagine. A subscription renewed without thought, a vehicle upgraded out of habit, a home maintained long after it fits our needs, financial support offered repeatedly without clear boundaries, expenses that seem harmless in isolation, but powerful in combination. The good news is that awareness changes everything. Once we see a pattern, we gain the ability to change it. Not dramatically, not overnight. Gradually, thoughtfully, intentionally.
And perhaps that's the deeper lesson behind all 5 expenses. The goal isn't spending less. The goal is spending with purpose.
Because money is not meant to be accumulated endlessly, nor is it meant to disappear mindlessly. It is meant to support a meaningful life, a life aligned with your values, a life aligned with your priorities, a life where financial resources serve what matters most. And when spending reflects those priorities, retirement often feels lighter, calmer, more flexible, and more secure. Thank you for spending this time with me. And if this channel helps you approach retirement with greater awareness and confidence, I hope you'll join me again. Quiet wealth is built slowly and lived fully.
Quiet wealth. Calm finance. Better life.